Hey, kings, queens, loves. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond You podcast. I am excited today to talk about one of the spiritual principles that we are going to focus on in every component of how we are choosing to be our greatest self on purpose. It is instrumental and it's everything to the existence and the reality we want to see. So, the first spiritual principle we're going to be discussing is faith or belief. So, I don't know how many times I have um, come across individuals who talk belief, but don't really live belief, right? And I think a lot of the times people can think that if I say it enough, that it's going to be it. Like I'm going to say it over and over and over and over again, and then that means I absolutely believe it. But that's not in its total functioning how belief works, right? So the definition that we're going to focus on for belief is a belief is a thought that you accept to be true or real. A thought that you accept to be true or real, right? One thing I like about belief, I like to think of in I see belief as I see, but it's hard to put in words, right? One of the hard things about trying to illuminate spiritual practices and principles and how they move is using the right words to convey what and how that movement looks and is and how it operates, so that one, you don't make it too simple to where you kind of devalue the essence of what it is, and you don't make it too complex so where a person can't grasp the understanding of how they're the power source for what they're utilizing daily, right? And so it gets really hard trying to put into words something unseen in a seen reality. It's not always the exact, so I have to think and get as close to the behavior and the function as I possibly can based on using analogies that are seen and that are understood, right, in the natural. So, like I said, one of the things that belief is a thought that you accept to be true or real. There are a lot of people who say they believe something, but they don't believe it. Why? Because they don't accept. Now, that accept is very important because remember, this is a spiritual principle. Why do I say it's a spiritual principle? Because it cannot be seen. You are taking literally every day in your life, you are bringing your belief into your reality. You are taking what is unseen into the seen. And so, with belief, there has to be a conscious awareness of what you're feeding it, what you're giving it, because belief is life. And so, it only has the ability to navigate or to be specific in its direction based on what you attach to it. So, for example, if I say, I believe in you, right? My belief is that I have a thought of you that I accept to be true and real. So when I say that I believe in you, I'm saying that you are a thought that I believe in and that is true and that is real. It's not just because I see you, it's because I understand how humanity as a whole was created and designed to exist in this world. And it wasn't designed or created to exist from this deficit or from this negative light or from this bad perspective. All of those things cultivate within the process of life, the events that you go to, the people that you encounter. And so as you continue to move forward in life, you get more and more encounters, right? And so one of the things about encountering different things is that it always leaves, I'll say, a memory, when we're focusing on within, it leaves a memory that either is positive or negative, and that positive or negative memory will definitely affect and how your belief is expanded. So, you ever heard people, for example, we're going to talk about men and women, for example, you can hear women say, well, all men are fill in the blanks. Like there are common things um, that that some women generalize all men to be, and vice versa. The men can say, well, all women are like. There are some thoughts that men generalize all women to be. Now, those beliefs in and of themselves are not true. Who they are attached to believes that they're true. So that's where the truth and or the good or the positive and the negative comes from when it comes to belief. Belief in and of itself is neutral. When it attaches to the power source, which is you give it the life to be what it will be based on what you give it to be. So if it's so with men and women, if they say, oh, well, all men are dogs, that's I don't know, that's just one that just came in. So if all men are dogs, this is a belief that a person believes to be true. This is a thought that men tend to be, I mean, that women tend to think is true for men. Now, is that true? No, it's not. Not all men are dogs. I mean, first of all, you have to know all the men to be able to assess if they're dogs. And since you can't do that in a very realistic way to make such an absolute statement, it's just ignorant. But I understand the emotional sentiment that comes from it. And so that's where the acceptance comes from. Those women who have been through their own relationships concluded based on the behavior and their experiences with those individuals, and they accepted it based on what they went through. Emotionally, they accepted the belief and the thoughts that all men are dogs. Now, again, is that belief true? Well, no, it's not. Is that their experience? Sure, it is. But to generalize all people based on your experience, well, that's ignorant. And we'll get into that later. So that's just an example of what I mean when I say that belief in and of itself is neutral, but you are the power source that gives it the life, right? You give it the life to be what it will be based on what you give it to be. So if you give belief something negative, like if you say, I don't believe in myself, this is how you can and I wanna say this because I want to very clearly paint the difference between how accepting belief and saying belief are very two different things. You can say that you believe that you're naked, that you're nothing, right? You can say, I believe I'm nothing. I'm nothing. You make absolute statements because that's the thought that you have believed is true or real. Now, it doesn't mean it's true, but it's just what you have accepted to be true or real. So now you're sitting here saying, oh, I believe that I am nothing. Now, in a very simple sense, you're believing that you are nothing. Does that make you feel good or does that make you feel bad? It's not going to make you feel good because it's negative. It's devaluing. Some people will refer to it as evil or it will refer to it as bad or darkness. But that very thought, and all of that will be true. Low vibration, all of that will be true as far as what it's producing in you. So one of the things that is important about belief and you and how you should assess your belief is what is it producing in you. So if you believe that you don't matter, what does that produce in you? Does it produce good or does it produce bad? Does it produce light or does it produce darkness? Does it produce negative or does it produce positive? Because what it produces will let you know if it's absolute truth. Why is that important? Because I've said it before. What you accept to be true or real doesn't mean it's truth. Belief is personal. Belief can only do, function, and be based on who it is attached to. There are a gazillion of things and thoughts in the world that you can believe in. There are so many different beliefs and so many different thoughts, and there's so much to believe in, but it doesn't mean that it's true or that it's real. How do you know that it's truth? And how do you know what you believe is truth? Because what it produces in you. And how do you know what it produces in you? Well, you know, you yourself. Like, you know that this thought is negative. You know that this thought makes you feel bad. You know that this thought makes you feel inadequate. You know that this thought does not do anything positive or add any kind of value to who you really are. So you have to be careful on what you are accepting to believe. That accepting is everything, because that is the function of what makes belief a reality in you. It is the function of what gives belief life in your life. However, you are going to utilize belief, you need to utilize belief in a way that is good, that builds you up, that is positive, that is light. And that really comes with first assessing, where is the deficit in my belief as it pertains to me being great on purpose? Where in my life, or why do I not believe that? What makes me think that I can't be great? What is it that's stopping me from being intentional with being consistent? And the questions go on. These are ways that you have to be with yourself. You have to assess yourself in a very real way. One, to heal. If you can't be real with you, you can't heal. Two, so that you can be able to distinguish, which is discernment. Discerning is being able to get to, I like to say discernment is being able to understand the motive of something that is in operation, whether that's belief, whether that's in an atmosphere, whether that's in a person. It is you being able to pick up what exactly is the motive and what is operating within a structure, an atmosphere, a person. So for you, you have to be able to assess yourself, because beyond you is about getting beyond you. And how you do that, the first spiritual principle that we focus on, but it's instrumental because everything we talk about is going to be built on this. So if you don't get this now, if you don't start focusing on this now, then everything else that we continue to talk about, you're going to miss. Now, if I'm telling you that you have to be mindful about spiritual, like what you believe, it is very important to understand why. Spiritually speaking, because that's the only way that I can speak, you have to understand how belief produces, right? How belief operates. So we're going to stick with the I'm not worth anything. So when you're going with that statement and that thought, you believe that thought to be true about yourself. You don't believe that you're worth anything. And how do you know you don't believe it? Because you can see it. You can see the behavior of beliefs. You can see what a person believes based on how they move, how they act, how they talk, how they interact with people. You can tell a person's belief based on how they move. And that's exactly how it should be, because belief is spiritual, unseen, and you bring it into your reality, the seen. And so, what you believe, you create. What you believe, you reproduce. But here's the thing about belief: if you believe things that are, what we're going to go with, the terms that people generally use. So, if you believe in things that are low frequency or evil or dark or negative or low vibrations, then those things do not have the ability to reproduce. Now, this is why you need to understand this spiritually, how they function, how evil, negative, darkness, whatever terminology you use, how it functions spiritually. It doesn't have the ability to reproduce life, it has the ability to attract what will allow it to become the most important thing in your life, your defense mechanism. So, for example, bitterness, right? Bitterness is going to reproduce bitterness, but bitterness is not reproducing bitterness in the sense of its essence is reproducing it. It doesn't have that capacity. What bitterness does, it attracts events, it attracts people, it attracts situations that it knows you will fuel its strength in yourself. So it doesn't have the ability to reproduce in the sense of the light. And we'll get to that. And we'll get to the difference in that. For I want to stick to the perception of darkness and evil and low vibrations. how that spiritually works in you. So again, the darkness doesn't have the ability to reproduce. That energy, that low vibration, it can't reproduce. What it does is it attracts so that you stay stagnant. It kills hopes, it steals dreams, it destroys your want to be better. It makes you settle for less, it makes you want to escape. It keeps you in this stagnated hamster wheel where you're still going through the motions in life, but there's no forward motion in you. So there's no forward motion outside of you. You're not getting to that next level of greatness. And why? Because you have given this life, and you've given it life to the point where in those situations that it attracts, it knows that you're going to depend on it even more, that you're going to give it life even more. And you give it so much life, you give it so much support that eventually it becomes what some people call a stronghold. So now you are giving life to something that was never designed to be a part of your life. And you're validating it and you're excusing it again based on the experiences of life. Now, I'm not diminishing what you've been through. We all have been through stuff, but it's time to get beyond what you've been through because that's what's keeping you stuck. That's what's keeping you from being able to get on the other side. So now here it is, you're in this low vibration, you're giving life to evil, you're giving life to darkness, you're giving life to whatever word that works for you. What how it works spiritually is the same for everybody. It is going to keep you stagnant. You will not have the capacity to move beyond yourself if you keep giving your life, the belief life. And what attracts these things? So then how this expands, so how bitterness becomes more is simple. It attracts situations, events, all these things. And you give it life. So you now you've given it the ultimate life. It's like a fat baby. And depending on when you gave it life, it might be a full adult or it might be a teenager. And so in whatever stage bitterness is, the events that you've experienced now has attracted other things because now you've had new same experiences. So you've had new experiences with, okay, you had a new situation where you encountered such and such and such, and it made you feel like you were crazy. So now you've taken away a piece of identity from another event, from another trauma, from another situation that made you feel like what your belief in yourself is from the beginning, which was, I don't believe I'm worth anything. And so I'm just painting a picture here, and I hope that you're following, and I hope that it's making sense because I can't stress this enough. Darkness, evil, whatever you want to call it, whatever term you call it in the natural, how it works spiritually, it does not have the capacity to reproduce. It only keeps you stuck, it only keeps you stagnant, and it only fuels illusions. Another example of something that you can talk about spiritually that attaches with darkness or low vibrations or keeping you stuck. Anything negative, honestly, you can think of anything. Let's say addiction. So addiction, again, it doesn't reproduce addiction. You already gave addiction life. You are the power source that gave addiction life. There is not one thing that exists that can operate in and through your life without you being the one that gives it consent. Nothing. There is absolutely nothing. I don't care if you think of good and evil, light and darkness. It doesn't matter. Whatever is in you, which in every person is both light and dark. And if you're under the illusion that it's not, then you're not real with yourself. In every person, there are your strengths, there are your weaknesses. Weaknesses are not light, they're not positive. They're areas that are gray or dark or however you want to define it. It's just not at all 100% light. And so if you live under this narrative that you're 100% light and 100% true and 100% don't struggle with this, you are deceiving you. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So when it comes to what I'm saying in regards to you being intentional about assessing what you believe, it's because as you can see, belief grows. So first it was you accepting a thought of something to be true. right? And most of the time, our belief is cultivated by how we grew up, the things that we experience in life. But belief is always changing. It's not absolute. It's always changing. It's always growing. Some things you learn to not believe. Like, for example, you could be a kid and you believe that Santa Claus is real, or that you think the Easter Bunny is real, or whatever fictitious being that exists is real, whatever cartoon character, Spider-Man, it doesn't matter. You get to a point where you believe it because you see it, you like it, it serves some kind of purpose within you to why you choose to accept it as a true or real thing in your reality. And so you become and you imitate what you believe. So you ever see little kids that's like, oh, I believe in Spider-Man, or little boys. Now I've had lots of these in my classes in different age groups that I've taught, even adults that go around doing the little Spider-Man thing with the web because they believe that they're being Spider-Man, right? Their belief in Spider-Man makes them believe they're being Spider-Man. And that is very important because when you believe something, you become it. You become it, and that's what reproduces it in your natural. So what am I saying? If you believe that you're not worthy, you become not worthy. You produce and attract not worthy. If you believe that you're ignorant, if you believe that you're less than, if you believe that you never will, you become the essence of that thought, and you will see the product of that low vibration cycled in your reality. You have got to assess what you believe. And why it's important to believe, I've gone over and over again. But this is the first spiritual principle, and none of the other ones get easier. But this is the first one that is foundational. It's four total. And again, today we're talking about the first one, which is faith and belief, and why that is important and how that works. Because you have got to understand that you are the power source in your life. You are the power source in your life. So now we talked about how spiritually darkness works, how spiritually low vibrations, negative thinking, how all of that in simply in belief, how that works. We talked about how you have to have belief in whatever you're accepting to be true. Once you accept it, you give it life. So at the moment that you accept it emotionally, you give it life to be a reality within you first, and then for it to be what you see outside of you. So you now here it is. You don't believe that you're worthy, and so you still go on. You still believe yourself to be. I'm not a good. I'm a good person. I'm not a bad person. Like I don't understand why these things happen to me, and you see that cycle. And because you're a good person, then you give all of you, and you keep getting hurt and you keep getting disappointed to the point where now you have this injustice of self that is beginning to expand. You're starting to give bitterness excuses for why you keep giving bitterness life in you. And so now bitterness has grown. And bitterness, again, can only reproduce bitterness. But how it does it is by using the power source. That's you. It attracts things that it knows emotionally that you're going to accept and that you're going to use to fuel it to stay in your life, to become an even stronghold. So when you're assessing yourself, I want to ask you, what do you believe? How are you believing? Are you believing evil? Are you believing from a low frequency? Are you believing from negative? Are you believing from whatever word that you give that is not positive and it's not life, it's death? So are you believing in the realities of death, of self, more than you're believing in the realities of life within you? That is very important because I sum everything up to life and death. Why? Because death keeps you stuck, death kills, death steals, death destroys. And what is it stealing, killing, and destroying? Everything that you were created to be. And why is it doing it? Because you're allowing it to. That's a reality that when we get into more specifics as we go becomes really hard because people, again, dealing with the truth of yourself is not for the faint and the weak of heart. You got to be able to be strong enough to accept, yeah, this is a reality that I've been given life. And then you got to also be able to accept, but I don't want to keep this reality. So now I talked about like how belief affects, how the negative of belief affects and how it works spiritually and how it attracts and how it keeps you stuck and there's no forward progression. Now I want to talk about the opposite: light, life, good, positive. Those things are everything. They are everything. Now, those things reproduce. They have the ability, light has the ability to expand light. That's reproducing. Good has the ability to reproduce good by being itself. And by you giving it life to be that in you, especially first in your belief, you'll be able to see it reproduce in your reality. If you realize that you are the power that is giving either good or bad, light or darkness, the ability to live in your reality, what are you choosing to live in your reality? And if it's bad, why? Light is so much more powerful. Light is so much more freeing. There's peace there, there's joy there, there's goodness there, there's infinite abilities and combinations of how that life can be expanded within you when you accept it and you allow it to be an expanded belief in you. It is amazing how even in our society, the negative things, like if you look at news, which I don't watch news, but I don't watch news for this purpose. That with news, there are only with news, with media, with everything, it's always negative. It's always negative, and it operates from a fear-based illusion. So everything that it presents is to trigger fear. Everything that it shows, every thought that it flashes within your vision, every imprint that it is placing in you is to make you believe whatever it's trying to feed you. And when you look at news, all you see flashing is danger, lies, illusions, uh, fear, things that really aren't the absolute truth. But if they can make you believe in it, that's all they need to do for their purposes to function in and through you. That's control. And that's how control works in so many ways, along with manipulation. But that's just an external view of how it works. And I just use that as an example, but I really want to know how you are conditioning yourself, how you are changing your belief of yourself. If you realize that you've been giving negative things energy and life, and the reason why I put so much weight on the negative and on the what's deemed as darkness or evil is because it affects the feelings the most. Light and good and love is what people say that they want, but they've gotten accustomed to the opposite. So when you get accustomed to something, you wishfully think you'll get the opposite, but you expect to keep getting what you've been getting. Like, and that's the distorted way to use hope. Like you're saying, oh, okay, well, I'm hoping that I'm gonna get true love this time, but it's probably just gonna be like every other time. Or oh, these triggers, these red flags from the past, I'm making it the reality of my present and future. So now it's like you're stuck in this place that you cannot get past, and everything that you've allowed to give, or everything that you've given life to, has now reproduced the whole orchestra in your life. And you got all these songs and all these beliefs that you've accepted based on what you're going through, playing constantly because you keep giving it life constantly. So I focus on the negative because overall people tend to focus on that more. And you see, like I said, using the news as an example, you see it, it's always flashing, and they uses it based on fear. Fear is what allows you, um, fear is what is used to keep you giving life to those things because it's going to make you feel based on what it believes that you know is true. This is going to happen. So it's not going to give you an illusion based on something that can't happen or that you're not fearful of. Like if you're not scared of spiders, then fear isn't going to give you an illusion of spiders. It's going to play on what you are giving its vibrations to. So it has the ability to detect itself when situations come up. I'm trying to make sure I explain it well. So for example, if you have a fear of heights, well, there's a vibration that fear is aware of that it's like, okay, this person is afraid of heights. So then the next time something comes where it's like, okay, you say you get offered a deal and they want you to fly, but your fear is so strong that you're like, I'm not going to take it because I am scared to fly and I won't be able to drive. So fear has now used what it knew and recognized about how you move. It now knows that, okay, let me paint this illusion that if you fly, it's gonna crash. If you fly, this is going to happen. If you fly, that is going to happen. And all of that, again, is not true. But however, fear is letting you believe it is. And how is it doing that? It's manipulating your feelings, it's manipulating what you think through your feelings is going to happen. Fear plants what I call feeling thoughts, thought feelings. They're these illusions that make your emotions and your feelings, well, more so your feelings, respond in a more specific and direct way. Right. So again, why is that important? Because on the other side of that fear could be the greatest promotion of your life, but you're allowing yourself to stay stuck in something that doesn't have the ability to produce anything good in your life because it's keeping you stagnant, it's keeping you isolated, it's keeping you on a hamster wheel with no forward motion. But if you get over the fear, if you go beyond the illusions that fear paint, if you go beyond what fear is trying to feed you, you'll receive the biggest promotion there waiting for you. Now, that's just an example of how fear operates, but it also connects to everything, to belief, because your belief is what produces these things. It's what gives life to these energy sources, to these spirits, to this essence, to these vibrations. All of those words are still true. How that works spiritually, it's the same for everybody. You might define it differently. Spiritually, it's absolute for all of humanity. So the thing is that it's uh, and I'm trying to keep this simple, right? And the explanation of keeping it simple so that you understand. So I will work other perspectives over and over again because you've got to be able to get it. Repetition is everything. Everything. The more repetition that you replay, the more repetition of all the things you've been has brought you to this point, right? And those things haven't always been great. Your self perception of you is conditioned based on what you kept playing over and over again emotionally and your emotional memory up until this point. And so, with the same repetition it took for you to be conditioned to the belief of the thoughts that you've accepted about yourself, is going to take for you to be reconditioned. It's going to take for you to tear down thoughts, conditioning that you thought was true, for you to really assess yourself. Like the journey of belief is continual. Everybody's belief will always be tested and challenged for the rest of their life. It's meant to be that way because you're not meant to be stagnant. You're meant to grow. You're meant to always be producing life. And so if you don't see that in your life, it's because you need to assess first your beliefs. When you look at your life and you say, I feel stagnant, well, in what areas do you feel stagnant? Is it the whole of your life? Do you feel stagnant in your finances? Do you feel stagnant in your health? Do you feel stagnant in your job? Do you find where, first of all, identify the location of where you're feeling stagnant at specifically? And then once you've located, so say um, stagnant for your finances, right? So say you feel stagnant in your finances. Okay, now you've gotten to a location. Why do you feel stagnant in your finances? What situations or what things that are in your present reality make you feel like the present reality will not change, and you feel like you're going to stay in this present reality in the future? So look at those things, assess it. Maybe you may feel like it's a job. It's not the job. It's not paying enough. Or maybe you're a business owner and you're feeling like you don't see any forward progression in your business. Maybe it's whatever. I mean, it's whatever is based on you. So those might be examples though of how you may feel stagnant in finances. So then after you access the external, you have to go internal. Do I truly believe that what I have, the product, the services that I produce, will generate wealth for me and my family? Do I believe that there's another avenue in which I can increase my financial flow that's not based on me killing myself working 80 hours, but being able to be smart and wise about new ways and opportunities that I can generate more income? Do I believe that first? Because again, stagnation is, it encompasses you already giving acceptance in life to a belief that is keeping you stagnant. And you have to be able to pinpoint what that belief is, what you're giving life to, what you have accepted as a belief as it pertains to your finances, so that you can now say, okay, I recognize this is where it's at. Because if you don't recognize it, then you don't get to the root, you'll never be able to uproot it. Period. It won't go anywhere because you didn't get to the root. You just took some of the fruit off the limbs, or you took some of the branches off the trees, but you didn't get the root. So it's still going to grow. So you have to be able to get to what the acceptance, the door, the pinpoint of your belief as it pertains in this example to the finances. So like once you get to that point and you're able to say it, then you got to recondition yourself. Well, what are you going to recondition yourself to? Now you have to figure out, what am I going to believe from this point forward about my finances? That has to be the first thing. You have to accept new beliefs. Now, once you accept the new beliefs, then you have to put some do into action. Now, if you don't know me, but I'm gonna tell you, I don't like the word try, because try means absolutely nothing. What does try look like? Like, what really, what does it look like? Oh, I'm gonna try. No, do and repeat. So if you do and you fall short in your do of achieving whatever the goal for your do was, at least you still did it, right? So now you know that you have the capacity to do it. So you know eventually you'll have the capacity to complete it. To say try is like a cop out, it's an excuse. There is no do and try unless you do. So if you do and you give 100% and you fall short, that's not saying I tried. Well, I did and I fell short. I'm going to do again and I'm going to come further than I did last time. That is being greater on purpose. So I'm going to end this by just reiterating this fact. Everything that you have built in your life has been on a spiritual principle of belief. And that belief could have been conditioned by how it's always going to be conditioned by how you grew up, what you experienced in life, situations that occurred. It may be, your belief may be cultivated by truths that are not truths, that your belief may be cultivated based on sicknesses or that you've experienced. There are many ways and many things that affect how and what you choose to accept as belief. Lots of it. Lots. And so you would have to assess yourself. And how will you know if that belief is a good belief or a bad belief? One thing about truth is 100% truth. Now, truth can't be anything else. It doesn't operate on low frequency. It's the highest of vibrations, that with love, that is. So it's always going to resonate in you, because in your spirit lies that capacity for you to fully come into that knowledge yourself and to understand it. But you have to be able to assess you. You got to be able to see where you are and where you're going and what is your reality now, and be able to be truthful with what you believe, because what you see in your life is what you believe. If you see cycles, it's because you've accepted those cycles to be truth in your belief. You have given those cycles life and belief in you. And nobody can change that but you. So if you say you want something different, then what are you going to believe different? How are you going to believe different? And then after you figure out how you're going to believe different, what are you going to do to recondition yourself? Because again, everything that you have believed, that negative, that evil, all of that, it only has the power to exist based on you. So once you decide that you're going to, okay, I'm going to choose to aim for greater, for good, for light, for joy, for peace, for life, all the things that reproduce life, then it's going to be a struggle initially in your transition of letting go stagnation, death to life. It's going to be a transition because death is going to work overtime to do what it knows how to do best, attract to you what it believes you are and what it knows that you're going to accept, and that it's going to be able to expand its growth and its community. I'm going to say it like that, within you. So you have to be, again, so you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared for the transition. If you're saying that you're going to go from this low vibration to a high vibration, then you got to realize there's some work in between. And this work isn't necessarily, the weight of this work isn't based on your human efforts at all. At all. It's based 100% on your spiritual effort. And your spiritual efforts are internal. They're the things that are unseen, but we can see the behavior of what's unseen in you based on what you give life to, right? So again, belief is everything. And if you're choosing to say, you know what, I'm going to believe different. There are a lot of lies that I realize now that I made truths because I accepted them. And now I'm letting them go and I want to start to believing truth. One thing I know is that truth will always make you aware of her presence. Truth will let you know that she's around. Truth will let you know what is truth. And yeah, I just like to refer to truth as she. So that's just my own personal thing. So yeah, so again, I hope that I feel like this podcast was like long, long, long. But I hope that you were able to glean something from this podcast, because in order for you to be your greatest self on purpose, you got to start with everything that is keeping you stuck. And those things that are keeping you stuck are not the things that were done to you. It's what you took away from those situations and internalized and made and gave life to and made a reality in your thoughts, in what you believe, and how you move. And now you see that reality and you don't like it. I'm challenging you to check your beliefs. There are some things that are not worth believing in. Again, you will understand what is good and what is not based on what it produces within you. Believing that you're inadequate is not going to produce positive. It can't, because it's not a positive thought. It's not even positive at all. So it can't produce what it's not, which is why negative dark can't reproduce. It can only attract to expand its influence in and through what it does in you based on the life you give it. So again, if a lot of things were redundant, chew on it. It was redundant for a reason. Maybe you missed it the first 5 times, or maybe you got it different the second time, or maybe your awareness was expanded into something that you can now make personal. You became aware of a specific belief that you need to change. Whatever the situation it may be, choose. We talked about choice. Choose to be great on purpose. And the first way that you do that is to believe that greatness is you. Thank you for tuning in and watching. And I hope that the essence of who you are is expanded in such a life-giving way that life will blow your mind. Have a great one.